So after creating the supplier, after creating our part numbers and associating the part numbers with the suppliers, we can now go ahead and open our first non-conformity. As you can see, the platform setup is really very fast, and we are going to open our first non-conformity under the NC Management tab. Actually, there are several ways to open a non-conformity. We can also open it directly from here, the part number database, from the page of the part. Here, open NC on this part. If I click here, I automatically create a non-conformity where the field for the part number in question is already pre-filled. Let's open it from here so it's faster. So we have the part number on which to open the non-conformity. Let's go and select the supplier. Here, in reality, we have all the suppliers from the history of this part number, because we could also open a non-conformity regarding a part supplied by a past supplier. So not necessarily, the supplier does not necessarily have to be active. We are going to select this supplier, which at the moment is Alpina Precision. It tells me right now that we have a contact for this supplier, which is the one we entered in the supplier's profile. Here it shows me their country, address, and phone, which we probably didn't fill out in the supplier profile. But if we had gone and filled it out in the supplier profile, I would see the field populated here along with their contact. I can add, if I want, other contacts from other emails with other contacts. Keep in mind that these are all the contacts who will receive the notification to collaborate on the non-conformity, so they will effectively and actively collaborate on our platform. As mentioned, the supplier won't pay anything, there won't be any subscription for them, but they will only be able to manage the non-conformities they receive from us. So once the non-conformity is opened, we go and put the details here. This is basically the issue statement, so we go and put the details about the non-conformity. I also have here, let's say, a test non-conformity to enter, so excessive dimension or deviation. There is a problem with a dimensional measurement, and we go and put the description, a brief description of the problem, right? In this case, we can state that during the inspection, during the incoming inspection, a dimensional non-conformity was found. I can also add some more details. I can put the diameter, and I'll indicate the affected quantity, so I don't know, 12 pieces when it was found. So we can put today's date, let's say, and I can set a severity. This severity is not the final severity of the issue, but it is the initial severity. I mean, for me, today this is a medium severity. After that, if tomorrow I discover that this non-conformity has caused a problem in the field when closing the non-conformity on the D8, I will be able to close this non-conformity with any other value. Whereas if I discover that in reality there is a problem of another type, so the severity needs to be reduced, I can reduce it. I will be able to reduce it later. An interesting thing about opening a non-conformity is this. When I go to select the phase where I have encountered the non-conformity, for example, incoming inspection, it tells me that for this detection phase, a severity equal to 30 is recommended, so I go and set a severity equal to 30. I can still put whatever I want. It's just a suggestion, let's say. Then I can upload a proof, an evidence of what the problem was. So I go and get, I don't know, an image, a photo, anything. For example, I have a photo here, drag and drop, and I'll put it in. We have the proof of the out of tolerance measurement. At this point then, I can do create non-conformity. Once the non-conformity is created, I will see it here in the list identified as test NC0001 part number, the title of the non-conformity, the supplier, the severity, what state this non-conformity is currently in, and when it was created. I can also delete the non-conformity in case there was an error, but I can only delete it until the supplier has submitted the D3, therefore the containment actions. At this moment I can delete it. The supplier will now have to fill out the D3. Once they do that, it will no longer be deletable because it means it has entered the management loop. By opening the non-conformity details, here I see a classic 2D where I have the issue statement with the issue description, what we filled out before, the problem description, the evidence that I can open to actually understand what the problem is. We have this diameter out of tolerance. And on the right, we have the timeline of activities. So every activity we perform will have a timestamp and will remain in the history as tracked as an action taken. So every time the supplier submits a containment, root causes, corrective action, and we accept it, it will all be tracked. What else can we do here? What we can still do is resend the invite. Resend invite will resend the invitation to collaborate to all contacts of this supplier company. In case this happens, in case the invitation email was deleted by the supplier, or they say they didn't receive it or something like that, or even on our side a spelling error in the email address, it will be enough to go into the supplier database, into their supplier profile, edit the contacts, and automatically resend invite will resend the contacts. Here, I'll take this opportunity to show that the DNA score of this supplier has now become 83 out of 100 because the non-conformity was opened. Consequently, the data has degraded. So the supplier is no longer as reliable. It has become a medium risk because it has an open non-conformity. So let's go back to the non-conformity and its management. Right now, what we can do is NC management and go take a look. We are in read-only, so we are in read-only mode for everything. Here we have D1, the team definition. This will be something that we can also fill it out as the customer, but it is something that, let's say, is the supplier's responsibility. They will be able to modify it. We can add some names that we have in our address books, but it will be the supplier who will submit the team. The description, this is in read only we can read it. No one will be able to modify it anymore because this is now the issue statement. And the containment. Containment, which at the moment is read only for us, and it is the supplier's prerogative to go and fill in the countermeasures and all the details that we at risk, all the parts at risk. The rest of the 8D is still closed, so the root cause analysis is also still closed, which we will look at later. Once the containment actions are defined and accepted, we will go on to define the root causes and the corrective actions. This too is obviously the responsibility of the supplier. We will only have to accept from the supplier's point of view, accept the corrective actions, the root causes that the supplier gives us. The supplier will also provide us with the validation of the corrective actions. It will then be up to us to decide whether or not to request a prevention, therefore the extension of the corrective action to similar processes with the evidence of the occurrence of the occurrence and the closure of the non-conformity. As I was saying before here, the final severity can be modified, and we will be able to add some notes for the supplier that will remain written and no longer modifiable once the non-conformity is closed. And we will also be able to manage the induced costs. And this is something we will see later, the management of induced costs deriving from the non-conformity. Also for this, there will be a series of discussions with the supplier who will be able to accept or not accept the costs, will be able to discuss them, and we will be able to modify the figures of the charges. At this moment, the rates are disabled because until the supplier provides, fills out the root cause analysis and highlights no trouble found, which they will have to specify. So they will tell us it is not true, it is not a problem, I will tell you why. At this moment, we could go and close the non-conformity with 0 severity for a no trouble found, or we could close the non-conformity only after the validation of the corrective actions. Very often we have seen in practical cases, as you well know, that 8Ds are usually closed when the corrective actions are defined. Very often there isn't even a validation of the corrective actions, and this is very dangerous for the process and for the recurrence of the issues. Let's therefore look at what actions are necessary from the supplier's side and what we need to do to move forward with the 8D process.